Previously on.
Previously.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on. Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on the recap sequence.
Hey folks, welcome to the recap sequence. We're back in the basement. This is
Took a couple weeks off.
It's been a couple of weeks.
Yep.
But we did the backyard Father's Day jamboree
Right.
with Brenda and Troy.
And of course, we had our we also had our ECCE recap that we did from the floor of East Coast Comic Expo.
Oh, there was that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were there.
And,
Yeah.
and it's only fitting that our first guest back is someone who, for the first time ever, cut the first ever wrestling promo
Yeah.
on our show. Andrew Clark, how are you, sir?
Welcome, sir.
I'm doing
Yeah,
well.
nice.
How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. That was definitely a first. We've never had somebody commandeer the mic like that.
Yeah.
It was exhilarating, I must say. So I'm hoping that this is like a regular thing we see with Chris.
I don't think anyone's ever referred to me as exhilarating. That's nice. I like it.
The fact that you directed that to Hal Hilden of all people as well was that was the coup right there. So that was perfect, and I applaud you for it.
The funny thing is, I didn't actually realize you guys had a camera. I just thought that was a microphone.
Oh. I
Makes
just
it even
got
better.
So when I saw the post you guys did on Facebook, I was like, oh, that's video. Oh man, and I just kind of fast forward. I was like, yeah, they got that.
I apologize. That's now it's for the ages. It's probably going to go in our promo roll, and people are going to expect some sort of a wrestling rivalry. We'll have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna build up
pick
that
him up
feud.
like Hulk Hogan lifting up Andre the Giant.
Oh gosh. Well, listen. Look, it's great to finally connect. We had a chance to talk to Sandy Carruthers. I mean, it would have been a couple of months ago,
Mhm.
and we were hoping to get you on with him at the time, and it didn't work out. But here we are today, and you are working hard on Adam.
The second half now, I
Are
believe,
we
right?
at what issue are you on now?
Issue 8 came out, which was the end of sort of the Athnamas affair. So it was a 3-part story arc, which was quite fun to do. I didn't know if I could do a 3-part story arc, but it worked
Right.
out really well. Not to toot my own horn, but it did well. And then so now I'm working on issue 9. There's only going to be 10 issues total, and I'm sort of issue 9 kind of slowed down a little bit because I was trying to do it all digitally for the first time, because I do everything traditionally.
Right.
But for some odd reason, I thought, hey, I'm here. I might as well do it digitally. And I started, and I got about 3 pages in and realized that part of the problem with doing it digitally is that it takes too long for me, because instead of just kind of like throwing a little splotch in the background to represent a person, I'm zooming in and I'm doing super detail on that thing. And there's really no need to do it, but you just can't help yourself because you can do it, right? So
Interesting.
it was taking me forever. And I also decided this issue was going to be the first fully colored Adam as well. So it's going to be colored as well. So I did go back. It's all being inked by hand now. And then I'm going to throw it in the computer and color it from there.
So when you did Adam, and I've obviously got my copy right here.
Woo-hoo!
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic, by the way. Got it at the 2 ECCs ago, I believe, because you did fundraiser
right.
for this.
Yeah.
You wrote and drew the whole thing. So, like, I mean, how did all this come about for you? How'd you get into this to start?
Well, I've been an illustrator my whole life that I can remember, something I really enjoyed. When I was in junior high, a friend of mine brought a comic book to school, and I didn't have any friends at the time that were into comics or anything, so it wasn't in my field of view. But he brought it in. I don't remember what issue it was, but it was an Incredible Hulk issue when he was gray and he was fighting the Rhino, and the Rhino was dressed up as Santa Claus. And I remember reading through it, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, this is what I've been doodling all this time, right? So that's when I sort of started and getting into comics and stuff like that. Fast forward to 2000 and probably 7, I'm going to say. Yeah, something like that, 2007. Long story short, all my friends had moved away from home. They were Toronto and Vancouver, and I was still here, very bored and not really wanting to make new friends. And I went to get a haircut one day, and there was a comic book store right next door, and I hadn't bought comics in probably almost a decade at that point because I'm stupid. But I went in, and Dark Horse had an issue out that was a creator-owned contest type thing. And for some odd reason, this thing just went off in my head. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll create my own comic book, and that's what I'll do. And snowballed from there. I ended up just doing my own web comic called A Slice of Fate, which is focused on a character named Slice. There's a story as to why his name was Slice. I know it's stupid in hindsight, but uh, he's actually in Adam. He's sort of like the Superman of Adam's world type of thing. But in issue 2 of that, because I released them in, excuse me, I released them in like a traditional comic book form. So there was a cover, and I did about 20 pages, and then it was issue 2 after that. Uh, I wanted to explore the idea of having a character in that world that was kind of like the Punisher, where, you know, when you read a Punisher comic book, he's a little more aggressive than when he's in like a Spider-Man book. I was like, but that wouldn't really make sense in, the real world.
Right.
So I was like, I just want that kind of character that's really going to put my character on his back heels a little bit and like really, cause some tension between the two of them. And I remember my biggest thing was I wasn't sure if I could swear in the like actually use swear, because Adam swears quite a bit. And I wasn't sure if I could do that on the web because I was like, well, kids might see it.
Right.
and I so I was like, that's fine. I'm gonna swear, whatever. That's the whole point of this experiment, right? He's gonna do this. And it was funny because I had, I'm gonna say, very small, moderate success with the webcomic, and especially in issue 1. But when Adam came onto it, I started getting emails from people about the character, and people were commenting and stuff because he was just saying stupid things, and people really liked that, which was fine. And that was the only thing he was in. But when the webcomic kind of ran its course, I was starting to do the shows, the HowlCon and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, I need something to sell. And I did print the first issue of that web series, but it was like my art had gotten better, and I was like, I just don't know if this is what I want to present to people exactly. So I just decided to start from scratch, and I just remembered Adam being that sort of one nugget that people really gravitated towards. So I fleshed him out as a character, and I did issue 1. And issue 1, my thing was, I'm just going to do it for ECCE, just to have something new to sell to people. But I sold a fair bit of copies at that first show. I was like, well, maybe there's something here. So I just kind of kept going, and I kind of loosely had a story that I knew was going to go. And I was like, depending on how this goes, I can kind of either stretch this out or, kind of keep it contained. And it's done very well for me. It's opened up a lot of doors for me, and it's been great. But yeah, I'm ending it with issue 10 because I feel like I can get the full kind of story in there. So that's the story of Adam, really.
Nice. So was the where you're going to end it after 10 issues, was that sort
Yeah.
of the story, the complete story you're stretching out, or did you sort of have, because you'd mentioned you'd done sort of like a 3-part you just finished a 3-part arc. Was that part of like at what point are you like, okay, I think I've got to think up some new stuff to stretch this out, or was it something of more, I have an end in mind and I'm just not quite sure how to get there yet?
Yeah, no, I kind of knew how his entire story arc was going to go from the very beginning. And then it was just a matter of sort of filling in the gaps. So like sort of the beauty of Adam is that I'm able to experiment, right? So I'm doing it all my own. So, if I want to change something halfway through while I'm doing it, I can. And, I don't have anyone to answer to.
Right.
And I mean, that's happened a lot, especially in the writing process. Because I write everything out by hand with ink and thumbnails and stuff. And then I draw the pages, but then I have to go back and re-edit what I wrote because, you're just vomiting this stuff out onto a page just to get it out of your head. So sometimes, I've literally just gotten rid of entire pages because I was like, I don't really need this page. It's redundant or whatever. So yeah, I think sort of the great part of sort of what I was able to do with Adam is that sort of between issues 5 and 6, it's alluded to that there's quite a gap there in his storytelling, that he's done a lot of stuff that I just don't focus on because it would have just ended up being kind of like Monster of the Week type of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you're going to get with Adam through issues 1 and 10 is kind of the meat and bones of it, right? I like to say, like, when you watch especially old television shows, there's like 22 episodes, but there's probably only like 10 great episodes that sort of define that character the most. That's kind of what you're getting with Adam,
Right.
right? So it could go longer for sure. I even explored the idea of doing like an Adam Zero to sort of explain how he started, or even just doing like issues 5A and 5B to sort of fill in those gaps. But I'm like,
Right.
it's just beating a dead horse at that point. So
So with Adam, now the trade, here we are.
yeah.
You did this one through Kickstarter, did you not?
Well, that was the first Kickstarter I did that failed, but
this one was?
that failed. Yeah, I got
Really?
that yeah, I was getting it printed either way, but I had never
Okay.
done a Kickstarter and I wanted to. And I do believe you guys did help fund it, but it didn't go through. So I didn't understand Kickstarter when I did it, and it was more of a test. And I definitely overshot because I was like, I had this notion in my head, like, well, if I'm going to put this on the interwebs, that's worldwide. That's what the
Yeah.
WWW
Right.
stands for. And I was like, I'm going to have people from like Japan ordering Adam. It's going to cost me an arm and a leg. I'm going to sell thousands of this book. So I kind of encompassed all of the cost into it, only to realize that's really not how Kickstarter works, and you don't really need to worry about that, especially on such a small level, right? So when I did the second one, which was for issue 6, that was a success because I kind of learned from my mistakes and stuff like that. So there's going to be a Kickstarter for issue 9 because printing in color is more expensive. So I
Mhm.
look forward to your support. And
Absolutely.
and yeah, issue 10 more than likely. And then after that, because there'll probably be a second trade, collecting issues 6 through 10. So I'll probably do something for that too.
So, how have you found the reception for Adam overall now that because you've been going to a lot of conventions, and so forth, and I mean you've got the first one in trade now, and you've got the single issues out. What's the reception like?
The reception's been great. It's like I said, Adam's opened a lot of doors for me, and it's one of those things that I didn't think about it at the time, and I have learned since that because Adam is so adult oriented or focused, like it's not for kids by any means, and I've had to shoo kids from my table so they won't buy my book. You kind of close your clients down a bit because you're focusing in on a thing, and so some of those clients don't necessarily go to the shows. So I do sell, like I take them to the Strange Adventures, Cape and Cow, that kind of stuff, and I sell through them. But it's worked out really well because I mean I've gotten a lot of emails from people. I get people messaging me to send them the new copy and all that sort of stuff. So it's and through that I've met great people that have I've been able to do work for and that kind of stuff. So Adam, I always say it's a mature it's it's a mature book for immature readers because it's supposed to be very tongue-in-cheek and just to give you a laugh. If you haven't giggled at least once an issue, then I did something wrong that issue. But you do have to have a bit of a twisted sense of humor at times.
So, do you have, as a writer and an artist, do you have a preference when you lean to one or the other?
Well, it's funny because until recently, I didn't really consider myself a writer, even though I've been writing for years now. And it's funny because I did Adam because I had done some work for people who were kind of working for like other independent companies, and those independent companies were kind of reaping any of the rewards from it, right? Which is a thing that's in the comic community. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it is a thing that happens where people create a book and they get to sell it at their table, but it's not truly theirs.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that was mine, that I could do whatever I wanted with it and release it however I wanted and work at it whatever pace. and my writing has definitely gotten better. I go back and read some of the old, especially the web comic, and it was atrocious. But I'm lucky enough that I kind of have people in my inner circle now who are writers, and Hal, I guess. And
There it is. There's the first one.
and so I've been able to learn from that. So I feel like this newest issue is the best thing I've ever written compared to whatever, right? And so it's I take pride in what I'm doing with my writing because I feel like it's the thing I can kind of keep working at and getting better at. And I have some other stories after Adam that I plan on working on. But I guess in my heart, I still think of myself as the artist. Like I can't
right.
write something. I've talked to other artists, that work for big companies, and they seem like they just sit at a table and they just type out their stories. And I'm making it sound simple. I'm sure it's harder for them than that, but they sit there and they just type out a story. But I still have to do it by hand and write it out and do the thumbnails and do that. So I have to visually see it in my head to sort of get it on the paper. But it's so I don't know if I could technically write for another person,
Mm-hmm.
to do
Right.
the art. I thought about doing that, but I have such a
How is it then as doing art for a writer? Do you ever find the writer in you coming out, or potentially offering? I ask that because I bring up Century Man 2, issue number
yes,
2 that you collaborated with
yes,
Sandy Carruthers on.
yes.
So I mean,
Well,
Sandy hyped this up, and we were really cool to see that copy at East Coast Comic Expo. And I'm just curious, as the artist doing this.
yeah. The secret of Century Man 2 is that Sandy's a hack and I did everything.
That's right. Sure.
No, obviously not true. Um, no, it's different. I mean, usually if I have no real attachment to the book other than just doing the art, I just keep my mouth closed, even if I do think things could be a little different. With
Do you have more
Sandy,
fun though being the artist? Like just sort of here we go.
yeah, that's a good question. It's I find it's different with every project that I've done outside of my own stuff because some people want you to do like really simple art, like less hatching and shadowing and stuff, and just sort of almost just like line work. And I find that kind of tedious in a way because I
Right.
try to hide behind a lot of blacks and stuff like that. With Sandy, it wasn't an issue. Like his story was Century Man's his thing, and we did. There was a couple, maybe just panels or two, where I was like, "Can we do this instead or something?" And it wasn't to change the story or anything. It was just I just felt like maybe something would flow better. And probably the biggest thing was that in the middle of that issue, there's what we call the red spread, and it's literally two red
Yeah.
pages together. Yeah, the red spread. That wasn't in the script originally. Those 2 pages. The page before that where he's kind of just punching the alien. Um, I kind of mentioned to him something along the lines of like, it just doesn't seem like he's, with these few punches that he's going from this to this. And he's like, "You're absolutely right. How do you feel?" He says, as if though I had nothing else going on in my life. "How do you feel about adding 2 more pages?"
Right. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, sure." But it worked out great. He said, just go nuts. I believe his term was, you can just do your Adam thing in it and just add lots of blood and stuff.
Oh
And
wow.
I have this little thing that I do in most of my books where somebody's eye will come popping out of their head. So that's actually in the red spread. I think it's the alien's eye actually gets punched out. So that was actually really fun to do.
There it is.
Right down here.
I love how Ryan's adding to for your
Oh,
the
the
ASMR people, the
Yes.
page turning sounds. This is yeah, just,
And with Hal actually, because I've done a few stories with Hal. We're actually working on one now. With Hal's story, before I never really changed anything, but we would discuss things. Because Hal's got a really good way of writing where it's he gives you the dialogue and the layout, but you can kind of ad lib a little bit, And I've sent him messages and been like, what if we do this and this and whatever, and he's totally cool with it. But working on a story right now that was sort of created by me, but I gave it to him to write, and then he's given me the script back, and I've made changes to it. But I think that's more because it's a collaboration, sort of a co-written type of thing. So that's been fun. I'm working on that now. It's kind of a secret project that hopefully we'll see either next year or the year after, maybe.
How is it as a collab? Do you have fun just collaborating on ideas like this?
I do, because it's when you make a comic, it's a very uh, you're very alone. You're in your basement, as I am now, and you're just kind of sitting here staring at your table, drawing or writing things out, and you're very alone. And I'm sure my family gets tired of me because I come up with these story ideas, and then I say, "Oh yeah, I had this idea today," and I start telling them, especially my wife, about these stories that I have, and she does not care. She's happy for me. She's proud of me. She supports me. But she's whatever. She's never read Adam. She's never going to read Adam. She sees some of the page and she's, what's wrong with you type of thing. And yeah, my wife's very supportive. So, but yeah, it's good to collaborate with people. It brings you out of your shell a little bit, because there's
Sure.
this thing about sort of like keeping things to yourself, and you kind of can't do that when you're collaborating with someone. You have to collaborate. So
Yeah.
yeah, I dig it. It's definitely a different vibe, but I like it. I just did a story, or just did 6 pages for Jeff, the guy who did. Have you ever heard of Aurora Man? It's from he's I, I might have this wrong. He's from Western Canada.
Okay.
I think Saskatchewan. Uh anyway, so I did 6 pages of that for him, and that was fun because he literally just gave me the script to do, and it was fun because his character's been around probably about as long as mine is. He's actually doing his 10th issue soon, I believe, or this is the 10th issue. Yeah. Anyways, we're right around the same timeline. We've never met in person, but he knows Sandy and he knows Tony and all of them, and so I talked to
Wow.
them, and he contacted me. So he's got a big thing coming out soon, which is kind of neat. It's his main character is going to meet different independent comic characters from across Canada type of
Oh,
thing. So
cool.
Hey,
that's how
that
I
sounds
got
super
involved. It's not Adam. Adam's not in it. I don't think Adam would fit in the story, but it's pretty neat. I like it. Yeah, it's neat to collaborate.
Well, it's interesting because I mean we're very aware of sort of the network here in the Maritimes because we see it all the time. But so do you find that in the community that there's sort of this cross Canada set of connections from folks that like do you make those connections traveling through other like cons outside of the region, or
Yeah.
what's the network like? I'm like what's the hidden
Yeah.
part we don't know?
Well, you have to be somewhat social,
Yeah. Okay.
which I don't have a problem with. I'm a fairly social fella. Um, to be honest, I haven't marketed outside of New Brunswick. Brunswick is as far as I've gone.
Really?
Yeah, so far. That's supposed to change soon. I might be going to different shows. I won't mention them in case it falls through. I was supposed to go to Montreal, but that kind of fell through too. But I mean, comics, I think, is especially social media, it's kind of such a small group of people that are kind of doing these kind of books that even if you've never met them, they're on Facebook or Instagram, so you kind of meet them through there. And I usually ask people, because I'll get friend requests sometimes from people I've never met, but I'll look at who they're friends with, and I'll just message somebody, like saying, like, "Do you know this guy?" Because he's friending me. I don't know him. If he's weird, I'm not following him. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's a good guy. He does his own book, blah 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 blah." So you kind of meet people through that. Um, but yeah, I mean, just through the work and going to the shows and stuff is really how you end up meeting people and talking to them. I've probably talked to more creators just by messenger than actually meeting them face to face, right? Because I met everybody in the Maritimes. I don't think there's anybody here that I haven't met yet. But
And that's saying something, because it's one thing, like Jamie and I, when we talk to guests that, especially here in Atlantic Canada, the boom for independent creators is incredible. It just seems like, coming out of the pandemic, everybody, we had artists and writers, all sorts of creative what creativity, excuse me, that just exploded out onto the scene.
Yeah, it's beggars belief how many creative people there are on the East Coast. Anyways, I mean they're all across Canada, but there's just so much talent here on the East Coast between artists and writers and the people that are doing it. And by and large, most of them are doing it because of the passion that they have for it, right? It's probably a word that pops up a lot, passion, because a lot of us aren't doing this for the financial gain. We're hoping the financial gain's coming, but we're not doing it right now for the financial gain. I tell people all the time that I don't make money off the books. The books are a way to anchor people to my table to sell them the other things, right? Like
Right.
if I can cover my cost and it's getting expensive to print books too, right? So I had printed issues 1 through 4, maybe even 1 through 6. That was just $4, but it's just so expensive to print now. I had to bump it up to 5, and I kind of felt bad about doing that. But even the trades, I only printed off, or I'm only selling it at $15 because I was able to get the cost down a little bit. But for 5 issues, $15 in a trade, that's a pretty good price.
That's
good
pretty
deal.
good. When you go into the
Yeah.
stores now, I mean, your average
Oh.
trade is,
Yeah,
19.99,
25.
Yeah.
29.99. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, that I was more than happy to support and get my copy of Adam for that.
Yeah.
I'd like just a question about Adam. Somewhere down the road, would you ever reconsider going back and adding color to the first trade?
Yeah, actually that's already something that's been discussed.
Oh, cool.
It's a I'm pausing for a second. I'm just thinking, what can I say?
And that's fine. If you can't
Okay,
say
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fine.
No,
I mean, I'm not saying anything. I love the fact that it was a black and white because to me, I'm a big fan of the crime noir books with Darwin Cook and the Parker series and everything, right? So to
Yeah.
get my hands on this and be able to read everything that's in, all the art is incredible. It's just a fun story that to follow. So I can follow it. I don't need the color to it. I'm just curious. Some people sometimes do that. They'll go back and add the color to it later.
Yeah, it's been discussed. I just know it'd be a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Again, trying to keep my costs low. I don't tend to pay people to do much. I have brought on Christopher. I always mess up his last name. Christopher Basquette. Chris Pratt Basquette.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. I've known him for years, and I
Well, I
always
think
get
it's
his last name.
it's in his Instagram Bisquick or something like that anyway, or
Biscuit books or something.
Biscuit book. That's it. Yeah,
yeah.
Bisquick. I don't know about that one, but
Bisquick.
yeah, but yeah.
Chris.
I've never known how
Chris.
I just say Chris. Yeah,
Chris.
I've never had to pronounce it. So
Yeah. I brought him onto letter in issue 7. He did a fantastic because I hate lettering. It's my least favorite part of the process. I despise it. But again, I wanted to keep my costs down. So I didn't hire anybody to do them. But I brought him on with issue 7. More or less because I didn't want to do it anymore, but also to help him because it was something he wanted to get into. And
sure,
I was
yeah.
like, well, yeah, sure, here, do issue 7. And, so he's done issue 7. He's did issue 8. And the difference between issue 7 and issue 8's lettering, like he did a fantastic job between those. He learned quite a bit. And then, yeah, he's definitely going to do issues 9 and 10 for me. I assume we've talked about issue 9, so I'm assuming he's going to do issue 10 as well. It'd be nice to have him wrap it up for me because I'm never doing lettering again. I hate it. Hate it. If there's an art to it, I don't care what anybody says. There's an art to lettering, and I just can't be bothered.
I don't blame you. Hey, this is Jamie.
And this is Ryan.
And we're the Recap Sequence.
Be sure to tune in to us every Wednesday night on CHSR 97.9 FM or online at chsrfm.ca at 7 p.m. Atlantic, 6 p.m. Eastern.
And if you don't catch us live, you can catch our podcast on Spotify, on Amazon, anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And we also have a YouTube channel you may have been watching. And if not, you should be. Catch us on YouTube at Recap Sequence.
And subscribe.
Subscribe. Yeah, please.
So after you've seen that and you're like, why did I wait so long?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because of the books, all of them, the lettering was the part that I hated the most. But then when I would do a page, I'd be kind of proud of how it turned out, even though it looks like crap comparatively speaking. And even in issue 2, you can look at the trade. I wanted to toy with the idea of doing it by hand, because most of the lettering is done digitally now.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to do it by hand. So if you look at issue 2 in the trade, that entire issue is done by hand lettering by me, and it's terrible. But I've had people tell me that for an independent hand lettered book, it's not that bad. I just look at it looks like hen scratches to me. I'm just like, I don't know why I did that. So
It's true what they say, isn't it? Everyone's their own worst critic.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I love the like some of the things you're saying as a creator sound so great though. When you get into passion, you talk about how the latest issue of Adam, you think it's your best work. You're prouder and prouder as you put things out, and it shows. That's the success in the books right there. So and even hearing you go back and look and hey, it's not that bad. It's so great to hear a creator because you are your own worst critic most of the time. So it's refreshing to hear too though, coming from a creator. I'm proud of what I did,
Yeah.
and I stand by it. You know what I mean? Like so, I mean that's people keep going forward. That's the key to success. I try to tell my kids, take pride in your work. It'll make all the difference in the world. Clean your room. Take pride in the fact that it's clean, and you'll
and then
never
I'm
go
not
back.
mad at you.
Bring the dishes out to the kitchen, and then I'll be proud of you.
Oh, God. The dishes
just
out to the
changed.
kitchen.
Yeah.
I have a 14-year-old, right?
Oh, perfect.
And
Yeah.
he had Subway one day. And we decided not to tell him that he's left because he watched it in front of the TV. He ate it in front of the TV. And we decided not to tell him that he left his wrapper on the coffee table. It sat there till the next day when I gave up because he walked by it 50 times.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
do you not see the bright green and yellow wrapper sitting on the table?
Right.
Anyways, yes, kids, you got to love them.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a life lesson in all of what we just said, I'm sure. Take pride in your work. Pick up the
Take pride
wrappers.
in your work. Pick up
Yeah.
the wrapper. Yeah. Stop making my blood pressure go through the roof.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk collaboration as well. You're now part of a big group, GY6. That's I mean, that's pretty. Tell us how this came about.
Well, they needed me, and sorry. No, well, I've known Justin for a while now. I believe I met him for the first time at AEX or IEX. I think it was IEX at the time, in PEI. Probably 3 years ago, maybe. I'm terrible with time, so it was about 3 years, give or take. More than 2 for sure. And he had this idea. First, it started off just because it was the idea for what turned out to be Freddy Beach, Freddy Fan Fest, or whatever it was the first year. And he just wanted to know, like, if we have this show in Fredericton, are you guys willing to go? And I was like, yeah, I'll definitely go. And that was kind of the beginning of our friendship. And then he did some different things, and we were sort of talking one night on Messenger. I was at work and just sort of bored, and I was messaging about something, and we were just chit-chatting about stuff. I think he was asking me about Adam, if I would ever like sell it to like a public like Image or something like that, if that ever came up. But I was mentioning that I thought it would be really cool to have sort of my own publishing house, where I could get other creators to sort of just not to compete with anybody, but I just thought it'd be neat if, like, on the East Coast, if everyone who's got their own independent comic, we could put that same badge on it just to create a sort of awareness. It's like if you go into a comic book store, if you start seeing the same badge on different books, it just might drag your eye to it. So that was more or less my idea for it. Everyone would still own their own stuff and whatever. And he started talking about the same thing. And the thing about Justin is he's got the gumption. He'll do it. And he took that ball and he ran with it. And it's probably 6 months later or whatever, he announced GY6, which was originally, I think, just supposed to be like an artist thing where he was just going to support artists to bring them to shows and stuff. But then he started doing some books with Hal. I introduced Hal to Justin.
Oh.
And I have since apologized to Justin for doing that to him. And because Hal's a horrible person.
Obviously.
You just need to meet him to know. Uh, but yeah, so anyway, so even though that was kind of part of our conversation, I didn't actually jump on board with GUI 6 for a while. That actually didn't happen until CaperCon this year. Him
Oh
and I
wow.
went out to have a talk, and it wasn't for any particular reason on my end. It was just I'm more of a face-to-face person,
Yeah.
Yep.
and I just didn't feel like Kevin, messaging back and forth and saying yes. There were some things I just wanted to hash out to make sure that we were both on board with the same ideas. And but so far it's been fun. There's been a little silent lately because he's been in the middle of moving, so there's
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
we saw him earlier this week and had a quick chat, and he said there's a lot of stuff they're working on, and now
Yeah,
he's on his way out to and moving out west. So,
yeah.
um, I we know how much love you have for Hal, but apparently, yeah, very limited. There's not as much love for you for a specific reason. And we encountered this at East Coast Comic Expo when we hosted the sketch battle. And that included David Cutler, Devin Taylor, and Brianna June. And we were
Yeah.
talking to everybody that was there while they were doing the sketches. And we said, is there anything ever out there that, people just throw, everyone throws out wild things. And is there anything that you've hated the most? And Brianna June spoke up before anyone else. And she said, yes, I was told to draw Iron Man on a horse with, I believe it was roller skates. And
Yeah, I
Dave
forgot
Taylor
about the
looked
roller
over.
skate part.
Yeah, Dave Taylor looks over and goes, "Who would tell you to do that?" And Brianna said, "Andrew Clark did," and that was last week at YCon.
Yeah, that happened.
But she
But
did
in
it.
my
She did it.
defense, I felt like it was a good practice for her to become an even better artist than she already is. And since that weekend, her talent has just skyrocketed, and she has no one to thank but me.
Now she draws everyone on a horse wearing skates.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well,
Well, it was probably a week or two after that we were at YCon, and we were at a best sketch battle, and there was like 9 of us on the stage. It was the biggest sketch battle I'd ever been in, and they asked what we were drawing, and who's the main? Oh, I got Spider Punk, and I think it was Justin was doing the talking, and he said, "What is Spider Punk doing?" And then I heard this bald-headed, moronic doofus bag in the background, yellow, riding a horse in ice skates. So I had to draw that.
to do it.
So I got my comeuppance.
Right.
So really, you're saying because Brianna was subject to that, this all is Hal's fault.
I wasn't, but yeah, you're right. It is all Hal's fault. Most things
So-
are Hal's fault.
Right. Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Do you have fun when you do these sketch battles?
Yeah, I find them fun for a couple reasons. One, you sort of get to see, because I just like art. I like seeing people's interpretations of stuff, anyways. So, and because everything else we do, we try to make it very pristine and as good as we can to get to show the public. With these sketch battles, you got maybe 45 minutes, so you've got to do sort of a rough. So it's kind of nice to see what people can do in that amount of time, with what they've got, and so that's fun. But it also usually brings people to your table afterwards to buy stuff because they've seen you and they want to come. So that's fun as well, because I do like making money,
Of course.
which just doesn't happen as much as I'd like, but I do like making money. But yeah, it's fun. It's usually to get together, because you don't get to sit with artists a lot to just sketch, and it's just something I really enjoy. A couple weekends ago, my family and I went to PEI just for a family vacation, and we got to stay with Sandy and his wife, Holly, and it was fun. We were there for about 3 or 4 days, and at some point during the day, we'd all have our sketchbooks out at the table and just sketching, me and my son and Sandy, and just doing random drawings and stuff, and it's fun.
So is your son into artists like sketching and stuff as well?
He is, yeah. He's a really good artist, actually. He's, like I say, he's 14, so he's still learning. We share our office now. He took over my office.
Commandeered it.
Yeah. he's gonna kill me for doing this, but look at it. He was working on this Gunslinger Spawn.
Oh wow,
You can
Nice.
actually see
there
There
it
we
is.
go.
Wow,
Yeah, look at
Wow.
him. Yeah, so he's pretty good.
that's
Yeah, I'd say
impressive,
so.
He is.
Wow.
I say he's pretty good. He's just at 14. If I could draw like that, I'd been happy
right?
as pie.
Right.
But he's good. He's 14, so his attention span isn't what it should be right now. But you have teenage kids.
Oh yeah.
He does that, and then something glitters over here, and he's over there checking that out. So,
Yeah, mine like to come down and use my office, but they have no interest in podcasting. I just have a Fire TV down here with Amazon on it, so
oh yes,
they just turn it and sit on the couch. So they have other interests, but not in
Yeah.
anything I do. So they don't watch my show.
stupid kids. Their
Right?
interests are terrible.
Yeah. What was I thinking? What was I thinking?
Yeah.
So you did a run of cons early with I
Mm.
believe you were CaperCon, YCon, East Coast Comic Expo. Do you have any others
Miramichi.
coming up? Miramichi,
Yeah.
Miracon, yeah. Are there
Yeah.
any others coming up that you're coming to, or others if you can't say, you can't say. That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The only, not really sure if, well, I know I'm doing decaf for sure.
Oh, nice.
And which I love doing. I don't get to it every.
I saw you
single-
and Sandy there last year.
Did you? Were you
Yeah.
there last year?
Yeah,
Okay,
it was the first time I'd been there since the first year they did it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I try to make it I've missed a few of them I didn't even know if I could do this year's, but I ended up being able to, so that was cool. And there's something in the works that I can't really talk
Okay.
about right now because I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that one's actually further away. And then I think Back Issues Con, I'm pretty sure
The one
I'm
in
doing.
September, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be their second one that they've done. So
Were you able to get to the first one?
yeah.
you were
Oh,
there.
right, yeah, you were there,
Sandy
weren't
were
you?
guests,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I think-
it was fun.
It
For you
spiraled
guys
into a
weren't
guest
there,
event.
were you?
No.
we interviewed
no.
Tony a few days before though, and
that's right.
he was
Yeah,
telling us about how it kind of just came together, and then all of a sudden they had guests. Like it wasn't the intent to kind of con it out in that way to have, but then it was an impressive crew of folks that made it there as well.
Ed
Too, so.
Brisson and Jed McKay were there.
Yeah,
Sandy was
yeah.
there. Yeah. It was fun. It was different. It's called Back Issues Con, but it's more like a flea market in a way, and it, I feel like it has room to grow for sure. But really, it was just, and it was a dream for any comic collector because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
literally just people there with long boxes and short boxes of books to sell.
Yeah.
And I made a fairly big dent in my issues and things that I'm looking for. And
So you
So,
can
yeah, it's
you're
fun.
you're a collector then as well.
yes, to my wife's chagrin, I am. I'm not as
All right,
bad as
mine
I
too.
used to be. Yeah, I'm not as bad as I used to be. I don't buy a lot of newer stuff anymore. I still do. I still collect Savage Dragon, which everybody beats me up for, but I don't care. I love Savage Dragon. You could read Adam and think, yeah, I can understand why he
Makes
loves
sense.
Savage Dragon. Yeah, that makes sense. And Daredevil, I'm still collecting. I think those are the only two sort of mainstream books that I'm collecting. But I'll just collect one-offs if I like a cover or a writer's doing something.
So when you go to these shows as a guest and so forth, do you ever get a chance to actually walk around and see what's going on? Because it was funny, we talked to Troy Little and Brenda Hickey, and Jamie brought up to Troy, we stopped by. He was doing the rounds Saturday morning, and he was like, I don't usually get a chance, so I wanted to go and say hi and catch up with some of the people that I hadn't seen some of the work. Do you ever get a chance to do that when you're at the events?
Yeah, actually, it's one of those things that, especially my wife. My wife doesn't go to as many of this. When I first started, I went to all the shows by myself. Then there was a phase where my wife and my son were coming with me when he was just like 5 or 6 or whatever. It has slowly transitioned to where it's usually my son is with me, but it's usually the complaint that they'll turn around and I'm gone. I don't know if it's just, I'm kind of tall. I'm 6'4", so depending on where I am, I can see my table from wherever
Right.
I
Yeah.
am. So if there's somebody there, I'll just make my way over and scare them because I'll just kind of slip in behind and go, "Hey, how are you guys doing today?" And they're like, "Oh, fine, weirdo." So yeah, no, I make it around. I'm a bit of a social butterfly, and I get bored very easily. So, which is amazing to me. You have no idea what I have to go through to sit there and draw a page of a comic book without going bored. I have a whole routine of podcasts that I listen to and music and trying to keep my phone out of arm's reach so I won't just
Right.
stare at that and yeah, so no, I definitely get around and talk to people. I'm pretty sure I've seen a couple people look at me come and go, oh God, here he comes again.
One of the things we like to do as well when we're talking to our guests, be it an artist or a writer, we always like to say, do you have a bucket list out there, Andrew, that if there's a character out there if ever given the chance to either write for or draw for, do you have one out there?
I would love. Yeah, I kind of have two actually. The second one might surprise you guys a little bit, but the first sort of I'd love to do Daredevil.
Oh, nice.
I'm a big Daredevil fan. I think the best Daredevil stories kind of stand next to any other. And it's funny. I don't find Daredevil gets as much notoriety or whatever, as like Batman, but he's so much better than them. Now, I was a big Marvel kid growing up. It's funny to go through my collection. I have very small amounts of DC stuff.
Right.
Everything's pretty much Marvel and then Image, and but yeah, no, definitely Daredevil. I've always had this kind of weird idea about doing an ongoing James Bond book, which I would kind of like to sort of co-write as well as maybe do the art with it as well. I think I'm a big James Bond fan. I've got all the novels and all the books.
Tell me Adam doesn't have a slight resemblance to Mr. Bond. Just
a little bit, but he was actually more modeled after early on. I was telling people Adam was kind of it's like Doctor Who meets Pulp Fiction. That's kind of what my thing was, but and I didn't want him to wear like an outfit, like a spandex outfit. So I was like, just black, white suit, tie. That's classic. It sort of fits him, and it'll look good when it starts getting ripped up and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm big James Bond fan. So admittedly, the early stuff a little problematic and by today's standards, but still a big fan of the franchise.
I'll ask you then, favorite Bond?
Well, Sean Connery, naturally. I think anyone who says anything different is just lying to themselves. Sean Connery is the best. Daniel Craig has actually slipped into number 2 for me.
Same with me.
See, you've got me on a conversation now because I can keep going on about stuff. Because to some people's chagrin, Pierce Brosnan is my least favorite James Bond.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
But that has more to do with the fact that other than GoldenEye, his movies were terrible.
Right.
Especially trailing off. And he kind of... I won't even get into it, but yeah. So
you could tell the difference after GoldenEye. It was more about flash bang,
100%, right?
Effects.
Yeah. And you got to have a good story. But also, my favorite James Bond movie is no one else's favorite. I still think From Russia with Love is the best James Bond movie ever made. And everyone else says, oh, Goldfinger. I'm like, yeah, Goldfinger's good. It's not the best. That would be From Russia with Love.
They're both up there. They're two of my top favorites. And then I would add Skyfall as my number 3.
Oh, interesting. I still do Casino Royale. I gotta be
then
honest
Casino
with you.
Royale. I don't know why, but I just found Skyfall it's one of my favorites.
I think I can see that. I disagree with you, but I can see it.
Stay tuned for the next convention that we see Andrew Clark at, as the debate on which is the better Bond film rages on.
I didn't watch. I wasn't allowed as a kid. I wasn't allowed to watch James Bond. I was told he was bad. It was violent, and but I had a friend who had a VHS copy of For Your Eyes Only, and the cover of that is really what got me. I don't know if any Probably, if you're a Bond fan, you know which one I'm talking about. So and then I was kind of intrigued. So I watched that one. That was the first one that I saw, and then I didn't see
Wow.
another one until Timothy Dalton. What was it?
Oh,
Was
License to
it
Kill
License to
or
That was with the Tina
Living
Turner
Day-
song.
yeah,
The
Living
Living
Daylights.
Daylights. That's the
Daylights,
one.
yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, License to Kill is the.
I,
he only
I,
did
I
two.
I see you complaining about Mr. Dalton, and all I will say is that he's not my least favorite Bond.
No, we know who your least favorite is.
But I honestly think that Timothy Dalton was their first attempt at doing like a Daniel Craig-esque type of
True.
James Bond, but they were still holding on to sort of some of the old cheesy kind of things, and it just
Yeah.
didn't work. I don't think it was his fault. I actually kind of liked him. If you sort of took him out of those movies and placed him in something else, I actually quite enjoyed his take as James Bond. But
Well, you know what? We should finish up the Bond discussion then by saying so Connery, then Craig. Who's
Then
three?
uh,
Moore or Lazenby?
well, funny enough, I would actually say it was Timothy Dalton. And
Really, at number three?
and-
Okay.
Yeah, only because I have an argument here for the bottom ones. Pierce Brosnan's my least favorite only because he only did the one good movie.
Okay.
And he kind of puts Roger Moore out of that last place. And I really enjoy Roger Moore stuff. Okay. Especially what was the first Live and Let Die he did was a good one. And,
Yep.
and he did The Spy Who Loved Me. So he had good, solid movies. But by the time
View to a Kill.
View to a Kill had come
Yeah.
out, he had just been there far too long.
Yep.
You know, when you see like a 60-year-old man making love to a 20-year-old woman, unless you're into that stuff, you know,
That's
and
a
maybe when I'm
specific-
60, I'll think different. I don't know. I'm just
It's
saying.
very niche
it just doesn't look right.
No.
And it kind of and the fashions of the 70s were terrible. Some of the cars were fantastic, but the music, of course, you know, other than a couple of the theme songs. So I'm looking at it as the total package. So which
So
puts a
Lazenby
weird
comes
thing.
in at 4 then.
Lazenby, because if you look at that movie, other than some of the things that they did that they would have made him do, he actually wasn't a bad Bond, and the movie's actually a really solid story
It
too.
is. Yeah.
So he's not my least favorite. I would have liked to have seen him maybe do 2 or 3 more. I'm not saying he was never going to be my favorite by any means, but how could you step in for Sean Connery at
No,
the end of the
exactly.
day, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially
Your opening line is "This never happened to the other guy."
yeah, which that line always sticks out to my
Yeah.
head. It's like that wasn't his fault. Like he was paid to say that, so he said it. So I'm not going to hold that against him. But yeah,
Wow.
it was
Well,
a pretty good movie.
I gotta say, I really hope because I'm a huge Daredevil fan. I love the Chip Zdarsky run on it right now, and so it'd be really cool to see you working on Daredevil, but James Bond as well. If you know, I can see the wheels turning there. That you've got an idea for a potential story as well. So that would be really cool if somewhere down the road you were able to get your foot in the water with Bond.
Never say never. That's
Oh,
Yeah.
well played.
Nicely
Well
done.
played.
Nicely done. Oh gosh.
I have one other thing. I did find out. So Andrew mentioned that his first comic book he ever looked at. So it's Incredible Hulk number 378, Rhino Plastered, and it is right there.
there
I mean,
you
this
go.
is very well.
That's
It's
not gonna show.
no, it's not going to show.
I'll use the
You'll-
magic of
Yeah,
technology.
we'll find it later. But
There it is.
yes,
Uh,
I remember they're like falling through a mall or something.
Yeah.
And he's yeah.
Oh,
so
Yeah.
that
I don't
was
even
the
know if
first
I have
book.
that issue. I should try to get that issue. If I don't have it, I'll have to go through
Little
my
nostalgia
collection.
right there.
well done.
Yeah.
You and your research.
What can I say?
Yeah,
You and
on
your
this one.
Googles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like one of those CNN fact checkers, like constant. Just
Yeah, but
like,
I'm present when I fact check it right there.
Well
Yeah.
done. Well done. I love it.
There it is.
Well, look, Andrew, thanks so much. I'm really glad we
Oh.
got a chance to do
Yes.
this. And on a warm Saturday morning in the basement. So I can't wait to the next con that we cross paths at. So it's looking like you going to decaf?
I'm not sure yet. I have to figure out potential logistics. Maybe, but I don't know yet. It's too far. Well, too
It'll
far.
happen.
It's like a month later. So
It'll happen.
Are you guys
If
going
not-
to be at the Freddy show?
yes,
So a small little plug for the Freddy show. I won't be there. They didn't want me there after last year's debacle. I'm just joking. Nothing happened. I'm just
Hal.
not going to be there. Yeah, Hal.
It's
It
Hal.
was all
Yeah,
Hal's
it's all
fault.
hell. That's what.
Yeah. You don't have to cover for him anymore, Andrew.
Sandy will have Dark Coast there That's where he's
Perfect.
releasing it, and I do have a I think it's a 6-page story in there, short story.
Okay.
That's the
Fully.
Western horror, I think, isn't it?
It's not. It's just a
Or
horror
very
anthology type
Okay.
thing done by every bunch of artists and writers on the East Coast. Hal's actually got what he calls a story in that book as well. Thankfully, he got a great artist to cover his slackiness. Yeah, but it's cool. It's the first thing I've ever done completely digitally. Drew it digitally and colored it digitally, and
Oh, that's
it's a
awesome.
different type of art for me. So I'm excited for that to come out and see it in print.
I'll
Right
definitely
on.
be getting my hands on
Yeah,
that. And I
we're
know we'll
looking
be
forward to
talking
that,
to
yeah.
Sandy as well while we're there, because I know he had mentioned it to us when we talked to him a couple months ago that it was in the works. So excited to see the final product.
Yeah,
Right
me
on,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'll be missed
Yes.
at Freddie Beach, but I am 100% certain that our orbits will cross again.
Oh, yeah.
Keep in touch. We'd love to talk to you again. I'd actually, you know what? I'm going to watch some Bond movies so I can be a little bit more of a participant in the next one. Because yeah, some
You know what?
recommendations.
I'm not going to I'm going to recommend a thing to do. I did this a
Okay.
couple of years ago. So I had I know you guys want to go. I had
Go.
I had a coworker who had only ever seen Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
He was younger than me by about 10 years, give or take. So it made sense. And Casino Royale was coming out. And we were just talking about it. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll recommend some movies. I got all the DVDs and I'll lend them to you. I said, the key ones you should watch. Anyways, from that conversation, what ended up happening is that I would go to his house like every Saturday night or something for however long it was. And we watched every single James Bond movie in order
Wow.
before the movie came out. And even at the end, because we had a weekend left, we actually watched Never Say Never, which is
Yeah. The
part of
only
thing.
unbond.
The only unbond. Well, there's also a 19. When did it come out? There's a movie that came out with a bunch of Peter Sellers was in it, and I can see their faces, but I can't think of their names. It was a spoof James Bond movie, but it was
Or like
called
Top Secret?
No, it was
Top
called
Secret?
Casino Royale.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh,
But-
the original one.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Oh,
very 60s bombastic LSD type of thing. So you even watched that. And there was an old 1950s. I think it was on CBS. It was on CBS TV, but what had happened was that he'd given them the rights to make the show, but because it was being shown in America, they wouldn't understand, British spies. So they actually
Yeah.
made his name was in the movie. His name is Jimmy Bond, and he works for the FBI or the CIA. And there's a British agent that comes in to help him named Felix Leiter, who's a British
course.
secret agent.
Nice.
Which makes all the sense in the world. But it's actually interesting to watch. So actually, we ended up watching the whole thing. With that said, if you ever get so bored in your life, it's actually a really interesting thing to watch to see how movies changed over the decades.
Right.
To
Oh,
watch
yeah.
all the James Bonds in order. It was very fascinating.
Watch Dr. No and right up until No Time to Die.
What's the count? How many movies? have we done?
25.
25.
25.
Okay.
No Time to Die was number
Oh.
25. So
That's just a marvel. That's all that is. I can get through that. I've done it before. 25 movies.
Let me know when you're done and let me know what you think.
Yeah,
We will.
I would love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks so much,
Yeah.
Andrew. Again, awesome to chat. Looking forward to seeing you in person again next. And stay in touch. Would love to do this again.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you very much, guys.
Right
Thanks,
on.
Andrew.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.